Backstory. Sophia Charlotte, born May 19, 1744, and lived to be 74, was the queen consort of the British King George III from their marriage on September 8th in 1761 until her death in 1818. As George's wife, she was also Electress and later Queen of Hanover and Queen of America when the United States was ruled by England. On her wedding day, Charlotte spoke no English. However, she quickly learned English, albeit speaking with a strong German accent. Queen Charlotte was a direct descendant of Margarita de Castro e Souza, a black branch of the Portuguese royal house. Several de Souzas traveled to the Netherlands when their cousin, the Princess Isabella, went there to marry the Grand Duke, Philip the Good.
Hi, and welcome to the premiere of Radio Stage. I'm your host, Kimi-SUNG. Radio Stage is where we highlight theater professionals in the Kansas City metro area who are doing outreach in the community in their own special way. And I'm so excited about our guest today. Our first guest is Mr. Harvey Williams. He is the founder and executive director of the Kansas City Melting Pot Theater. They were founded in 2012 and have produced 34 productions already. They have a new playwrights division, an education division where they work with young people and others in the community. They train stage managers, and they have worked with female directors in particular. This past season, they have featured all female directors for their season. So we are excited to have him here today.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I hear that I'm the first guest.
You are the first guest.
So my door prize will be on the way out.
Yes, your door prize will be out. But I had to have you because, well, you and I met in 2018 at UMKC, KC Rep. So I've worked with him. So he's an actor as well. So you're an actor, a playwright. You direct too?
Yeah, I have done that. Kind of whatever it's taken to kind of get started with things and just continue with them. So, yeah, I've kind of worn a lot of different hats.
Yeah.
Tried to do it well. Some better than others, but, to make it work.
Now, I wanted to talk with you about, some of the good, some of the bad, of Black theater in the Kansas City metro area. But before we get started, we want to know a little about you. Are you from the Kansas City area?
I am. I was born and raised, as they say, right here in Kansas City. Yeah. I attended, grew up in what was at that time was known as Wayne Minor, the projects of Wayne Minor, later Bruce R. Watkins projects or whatever.
Is that down around 12th Street?
Yeah, Vine, 12th and Vine, right around in that area, general area. Parade Park in Kansas City, down, close to the 18th and Vine district also. Right. So, those were kind of my stomping grounds growing up. And I attended grade school there, at the time St. Monica's grade school. Okay. Complete with nuns, and so you know how that goes. That was the real deal then.
You got a good education.
Yeah. And so I grew up, I graduated from St. James grade school, which at the time was like about 39th and Tracy, I think. And I went to high school at Bishop Lillis High School, at that time 37th and Forest, which is now the De La Salle Educational Center.
Oh, all right.
And after that, after graduating from high school, went to the service, came back, and finished up my college education for communication studies at UMKC.
All right.
And graduated from there and tricked this lady into marrying me, Linda Williams, And so that's worked out.
Co-founder.
Let me see, we've been married now about 40 years. So I think it's going to work out.
I think that's going to work.
Keeping that
40
going.
years.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And so, so we And then from there, I just got involved in different things, with theater, after coming out of UMKC. But I did have, quote, a real job. I worked as a juvenile officer, Jackson County Juvenile Court. I did a lot of that while I was still attending UMKC. So came out of that and then got involved in just teaching overall. I taught GED studies for the state of Missouri did that for about 15 years. And then after that, after I slowed down with that, had kind of got more regulated into the theater community. So was doing more things.
How did that happen? What inspired you to get more involved with theater?
Actually, what inspired me was a gentleman named I'm trying to think I was in class. He comes into class. I was taking just an elective class. It was an acting 101 or something like that. And so he said, well, was anyone interested in extra credit? Well, I needed regular credit, extra credit, everything I could get, That's how that was going, yeah. And he said that he was doing a play at Park College, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, which meant nothing to me because that's how far along I was in the acting world. And he said he was looking for someone to look at to play the role and this and that. And I said, fine, I'd be glad to do it. And so he cast me in the role. I got on stage, and really I got involved in seeing the real actors, the people who knew what they were doing, and I saw the camaraderie and how they were putting the story together. So I appreciated the process, the whole process. And so that got me interested. And I was in communication studies. And so I like to write anyway. And so later on I got involved with a gentleman who did some acting classes named Dennis Allen. He's passed now, but at the time he was doing classes, and he wanted someone to do monologues, monologues for his students, just short monologues. And so he asked me if I'd be interested in doing some, and I did some of those. And he was familiar with the whole arts community. And then one day, it was jackpot time, because he came and he told me they're doing some movie. That meant nothing. He said, but they're looking for extras. And so I'm thinking, okay, whatever that is. Right. And he said, and they pay you.
Oh,
okay, now that was it. That was the ring. But then he explained to me that it was a movie. It's called Article 99 at the time. And so I went there, and like all other extras, sat there for like 82 hours.
Right.
To be on screen for maybe a minute, 30 seconds or something like that. Yeah. And but once again, I was fascinated by this different process on stage. Yeah. Because this was the film. And at that time, some big name actors, Kiefer Sutherland and Ray Liotta and Forrest Whitaker. That was kind of the cast that was
shot
about
here in
this.
Kansas City.
Oh yeah, right here in Kansas City at the old hospital, St. Mary's, I think it was, over on Main. And so I got involved in that. Then I got an agent. I don't remember how that happened, but someone told me they will find some jobs for you that pay. And so I was doing my regular work and got involved in it. And one thing led to another. I got a couple of auditions for different shows, and then the rest was just kind of coming into it. So I never had any real formal training in theater or acting. And so I kind of came by it honest, I guess you would say, because it was kind of just being in the mix and then noticing and learning and being interested in the process.
Learning on the job, learning as you do it, learning your craft more, and like you said, and learning from other people who you were working with. And it is all a collaborative effort.
Oh, yeah.
So when did you decide, you know what, we need to have a theater that is predominantly African American, but your name of your theater is quite intriguing, the Melting Pot Theater. How did that come about, that name, and why?
Okay. All right, already you've given me way too much credit. The idea for theater in general, for me, was simply from the standpoint that I had written a play, very selfish motivation. I had written a play done years ago by, at the time it was MC Players, Martin Chisholm and a theater group, community theater group in Kansas City, Kansas, basically. And they did a lot of community theater involving black actors. And we did a lot of different, plays through them. And I'd written this play, and they had actually done it for me. And it was well received. And so this was, 10, 15 years ago. And so I came to the point where I wanted to kind of rewrite it and see about getting it done. And so I did that when I stopped my teaching job. And so now, it was sit on the porch and watch the mailman or do something else. So this was the something else. And I knew enough actors and people involved that I felt like, I could tap people and say, would you be involved with this, with me? Because, of course, at that point, there was no organization. Well, at that point, I got that going. And then my wife, in her infinite wisdom, said, what are you doing? And I kind of explained to her what I thought I was doing. And she's like, well, why would you just do one thing if you're interested in doing that? Why wouldn't, you be more interested in setting something up? And then we talked about it. We kind of got serious about it. And it was a thing. I said, well, just like my motivation was my play. Right. But then all the other local actors, especially black actors, who at the time didn't have much of a platform in the theater, community.
Needed a place to call
I said,
home.
if this could be extended to them too, then that would be great. And so that was kind of the seeds. The melting pot came from, I learned a little bit when I was going to UMKC. Okay. It wasn't all a waste. But I did learn about, in history, world history, and they talked about the concept of the melting pot. And there are pros and cons to it. There are pros and cons to it. Because, and if you think about it, it can be something that's not so good.
Right.
Or it can be something that's very good. It can be a gumbo.
Right.
Or it can be a hot mess. Yeah. And so, but my concept with it was that, do we really have a choice? Because that's what we're in.
That's what we're in.
And to me, it was the edge of the conversation about diversity. And when people started talking about diversity, it struck me that they kept saying, how can we get diversity? Where can we? It's there.
It's already there.
If you open your eyes and you walk outside and you're in any kind of community, then you see that diversity. You see different people. So reflect
the community that you're just living in each day anyway.
Yeah. And I think the truth about it was how true is the space, as they say, to allowing everyone to participate.
Right.
And in theater, along those lines. And so when we talk about, female directors, black female directors, or just, young people who or in high school, and they come and they see plays and they go to maybe matinees and UMKC and places are wonderful about giving them that experience. But to them, it's very special, and it's almost like it's special, but it's not real.
Right,
because,
not attainable.
Right. How can I get involved? These people are doing this, but they've got talent or whatever. They know what they're doing. Well, yeah, but these are people who have some access and have some ability to reach it. And so Melting Pot's idea was to give that access to the community, right. To the kids who didn't. And, you would think a lot of times you offer people something. You know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But you offer people something, and there's a hesitancy about it because it's like, okay,
you're offering it.
Yeah.
I don't have to beg and scratch.
As opposed to if I wanted to charge you X amount of dollars, it may pique your interest a little.
Yeah, they think it holds more value.
Right,
it's a strange thing that we humans do.
Right.
You are. So that's it right there. Your theater's whole purpose from its inception was accessibility to everyone. Like I know two actors who were recently in your production of Barbecue.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, who are white artists
Right.
who I'm friends with, and you know, who have worked with John Hingle and
Oh,
Jessica
John, yeah.
Whitfield.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, they were
and
fabulous.
John's worked at your
Before.
theater before,
Yeah.
but Jessica was so excited. I mean, she said, "I just want to cry because it's all over." And I've heard other people say that too. They are so enamored when they work at your theater. They say like they're treated like family.
And that's due largely to, quote, once this organization got put together, I can take a minimal amount of credit. You know, the easiest part about the dream is the dream. The hardest part about it is
bringing it to
making
fruition.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Because you
And
can
you need
dream them up,
people.
you know, and throw them out there, and there they are floating around.
Right.
Means nothing until you have people and have an organization. And that's where my wife came in. She was a manager in Kansas City.
So she's an administrator.
Yes,
type.
and so that was her thing.
handles it.
That's her passion, the business part of it. My passion was the pie in the sky, the ideas, you know, the fantasy part of it. And what we found was, as much as she was like, "What are you talking about? How are you going to do that?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? Why would you ask me how I'm going to do that?" And we were saying the same thing. I've got to find out what I can accomplish.
Right.
And what I can't accomplish is even more important, because then I've got to find the people who can pull that part of it. And that's their passion. So one thing we've learned is whether you're an actor, an office manager, whether you work in sessions, you clean up the parking lot, you have to have a little bit of a passion for doing that, you know, because it all makes
That's
that
all
up.
going to work.
And I, you know, take for instance building sets or being a stage manager. I would have no desire to be a stage manager.
Yeah, and it's quite a skill.
It's
Definitely
yeah.
without them.
Yeah, you have
and your
a
stage management program,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Oh yeah,
How did that?
We have well, that came about as one of the things that we didn't have access to, because when we were doing shows, one of the first things we learned was you need to have someone who can do these things, and they were around, but number one, at times they could be, you know, there was an expense involved, and you can't take that away because they're valuable and they deserve to be compensated. But then on the other hand, it was once again finding someone who can kind of relate to the stories you're telling. You know what I mean? And sometimes having that common community when you're working on a certain show, helps out. And that's not to say that other people's ideas and expertise is not needed. It is. It's very valuable. But we said, and then we started looking and we started saying, when we did the women's thing, we said, well, you know what also would be nice? Let's get some more people involved in stage management. And we were like, okay, but who? And so one of the things Linda and also Nicole did was they talked about starting a training, professional training for stage managers. And they got with the gentleman, I can't remember who it was. And this was kind of over at the very beginning of the pandemic. They had started this.
Good time to do that.
Exactly, because we could do it through Zoom. People were looking for things to do. Shows weren't going on.
Right.
So you had a lot of people who, you know, they had the time, unfortunately, because
and
of the
Nicole
pandemic.
Presley. So you're talking about
Nicole Hodges Presley,
like your artistic director.
Our artistic director,
right?
yes.
I
Her,
remember when she came on board.
Right. Her and Linda got together and they put together that. They've also gotten together on some other programs involving
the new playwrights, right?
New playwrights. Well, Louis Morrow is our
Wonderful
director
playwright.
of new playwright development, and he's done a couple of shows we produced at Just Our Broadway, and he's got some things out on the national circuit. He's also got something quite interesting coming up real soon.
Wonderful.
That's going to unveil about the time this of our new season next year.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
he's doing some great things, and so the pandemic did enable us to get a lot of those programs because again we had the time, even though we didn't necessarily want it that way. we had the time to invest in
and
looking
you utilized
into
it well, and the community, I'm sure, is greatly appreciative of
right.
it. Because what I found that during the pandemic, with all of these new ideas coming about, new opportunities, it's easier for people to kind of get engaged and get on board, and at least try it out to see if it's something they have to go without a full in-person committal yet.
Exactly.
Right? Did you find that that's
Yeah.
the case?
And Kansas City not being one of the other things about, and you know this again, I'm not telling you anything, but everyone's always from Kansas City.
Right.
Well, you know that line.
Yeah.
If you want to make it in the certain amount of the business or at a certain level, you have to leave.
Right.
And it's almost true because of the market, just the way the market's set up.
But that is kind of changing
And
here, I think.
that's one of the things that we thought about. Wouldn't it be great if now you didn't have to be from Kansas City and you
Right.
came to Kansas City and you were from somewhere else?
And you all are very instrumental in that, especially in Black theater. Like, I'm from New York City.
Right.
So, New Federal Theater, Negro Ensemble Company. As a young girl, those were the theaters that, I would go to and see plays or, wish, I love to, work with them. And fortunately, I did get to work with Woody King one year.
And Woody he finally retired. I think he retired.
Yeah, he did.
But his, I believe it's his wife has taken over. So they're still going strong.
Yeah. And so it's those presences in cities that are so important to the young people, like you said. And I see KC Melting Pot Theater as that equivalent, like here. So it's really, good that you're here. What are some of the struggles, though? Some of the, not so melting pot sides that you've had to deal with over this, 10 years?
I guess the worst times for me, from my perspective, was we went through a lot to get shows up. And at the beginning, of course, when you're not known, it's very tough. Even nowadays, when you're known, it's tough to draw, an audience in, especially when you're not known or you're new. And literally, the first show we did, which was the show I wrote called Old School Ghetto Gospel, literally.
Wait a minute. Old School Ghetto Gospel. Love it.
literally had one person in the audience the first show we did. And it was the mother of, it wasn't even my mother. My mother didn't show up.
But you know what? Listen, you have one audience member.
That was it.
There you go. You're going to put on a show.
And that's when I told the actors something that I've told them ever since then. Whether you have one person or 1,000 persons sitting out there, your performance
That's it.
should be the best performance
That's
you
it.
ever give on any night.
That's it right there.
Because you're only going to give that performance once. So you can never give your best performance. If you do, you shouldn't perform anymore because it's over with. So,
right.
And so, but from that we learned. And then the appreciation, the flip side of that is once you started doing things and people saw it and they liked it and word got around, then watching people come into it and people trusting you. When they said, well, who's doing that? Melting Pot. First it was who? And then it was, oh, yeah, I heard of them. Or, oh, yeah, I went and saw one. It was pretty good. And so the next time there's a little bit more of an incentive to come back. And then also making it relatable. Right. Stories that Shakespeare is, fabulous. And it definitely is a core of theater. I mean, however, when you're trying to bring some of these younger children in or younger adults in, or even some adults who just haven't had exposure to a lot of, the educational part, theater, the
I
training.
know what you mean. Yeah.
It's got to be something that they feel is real.
Right.
This gets my attention.
It does. It makes me think of, that's why Tyler Perry ended up becoming, so large. He started off with his touring theaters that were relatable to, the community.
Right.
Some, in the more educated, cultured in the theater community, may have been, oh, no. But hey, he got them folks in,
And along those lines also, that's another part that I appreciated about the whole process. It's like the lemonade stand.
Mm-hmm.
When we first started, we were not a not-for-profit, and people were saying, well, why aren't you a not-for-profit? And my thinking was, who's going to give me money? They don't know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they give me money? Would I do that? No. So we said, let's put the product out there. Let's struggle. Let's put it out there. Go into my own pocket, spend what I can, put it out there.
Got to be willing to
And if
sacrifice.
people like it and come back, then I can get to the point where I can go out and say, okay, I'm going to establish myself, which we did as a not-for-profit. And now people say, well, who are you, Melting Pot? Oh, okay. They got more of a tendency to want to listen and be able to help you out with funding. So, yeah.
And so you do have a group of subscribers. You have a subscriber base now.
Yeah, we have some season ticket holders.
Great.
We have people who we consider are regular patrons that come in.
Wow, that is
some organizations in the community, the Deltas, and I'm not going to name them because I won't name some of them.
But
then,
they're regular.
Yeah, I won't have them anymore. So, but we do, and we've managed to establish that. So that's part of the comeuppance, I guess. But the whole thing is just to stay true to what you want to do, giving the community something that's good, and the rest kind of takes care of itself.
Reaching out to them. And your board is reflective of the Melting Pot as well.
Oh, yeah. We've got Doug Schroeder. We got people on our board and also on our executive staff who are reflective of other parts of the community. We're looking to expand that too. I'm dying to get more Latinx people involved.
Right. And there's a large Asian community in Kansas City that's in the theater as well. And you will. Yeah. I mean, everybody, where the pandemic has just ended.
Right.
I mean, we're getting back out there. I wouldn't tell a lie. I don't want to say it ended.
There was a parade today.
And there was a St. Patrick's Day parade. So more and more people will start engaging again, which is beautiful. You know why? Because our souls need it. We need the arts. We need live theater. And, before we end this segment, though, which, you've given us like such a wealth of history and knowledge here. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you to do something else. There isn't theater without the playwright. We need these plays. And education is, key in theater as well. So I'd like to ask you, it's kind of an assignment for those watching. Can you give us the name of a playwright that you would suggest people can, purchase their play online or maybe even in a bookstore or go to the library and get, but a playwright that you think would be good for people to read some of their work?
Oh, God, there are a lot. And some of it goes back to some of the standard classics, in theater. But on a more contemporary basis, if I were talking to younger people, and we've learned this from having them come in to our shows, and August Wilson, who's looked at generations, and so he's looked at some different aspects. Our young playwright, Louis Morrow, he's got a show coming up in May called Begetters.
So
come
that's
and see that. Yeah.
Two of them, and they can come see the play. Yeah. And when does the play open?
It opens in May the 13th, I think.
And say the name of it again.
Begetters.
Begetters.
Yeah.
And KC Melting Pot Theater is located where?
We actually, our performance space is in the Just Off Broadway Theater, which is at 3051 Penn Valley Drive, right off of Linwood and Broadway, and in between Broadway and Main. And it's a great space. We've done a lot to enhance it. KC Melting Pot is the anchor theater there. Just Our Broadway Theater is a separate entity.
I see.
And they also have other shows that come in.
I didn't know that.
So you can go to their website and check out things.
As well.
But we help to maintain the building and kind of act as custodians for that.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Harvey. This has been really a pleasure. We're going to have you back again sometime because 30 minutes, I don't think is
Will there
enough.
be snacks next time?
Yeah, listen. I have some snacks right here, and I have some more healthier snacks. Hey, don't leave here saying I didn't feed you now.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Snacks. Thank you so much. Right. And remember, August Wilson and Louis Morrow, two wonderful playwrights that I think whose work you will enjoy. You'll learn a lot, and to draw you in. And Louis Morrow's play, The Begetters,
Begetters.
Oh, Begetters, will be shown. Premiering what day again?
May the 13th. You can go to our website, if I can give that.
Yes.
kcmeltingpot.com. And it's got all of our past, present, and future things coming up and a lot of good information. So kcmeltingpot.com.
Thank you so much. And stay tuned for our next guest coming up in one moment. Thank you so much, Harvey.
Thank you.
Yes.
Light, love, good vibes. Baby, tonight is your night. Don't turn down your light. Shine bright with good vibes. Light, love, good vibes. Baby, tonight is your night. Don't turn down your light. Shine bright with good vibes. No time for stressing tonight. No stress. It's all about good vibes. You know it. Leave the drama behind. Tonight we're gonna shine. Yeah. Breathe in and breathe out. 'Cause tonight's about celebrating your life. Come on. Only good vibes. Tell them about tonight, y'all. Tonight will be what we always wanted. Yeah. Tonight we'll know that it's all about light, love, good vibes. Baby, tonight is your night. Don't turn down your light. Shine bright with good vibes. Light, love, good vibes. Baby, tonight is your night. Don't turn
Welcome
down your
back
light.
to
Shine
the
bright
second
with
half
good
of Radio
vibes.
Stage.
Came here for a good time.
Our next guest is Mr.
free
Jake Walker,
mind.
the Executive Director of Theater Community Fund, Kansas City. He has fed and clothed and helped house even many theater professionals in the Kansas City metro area. So I'd like to find out a little more about him and the Theater Fund. Hi, Jake.
Hey,
I'm so glad you were able to come. I really am.
I'm happy to be here.
Like I found out about you, during the pandemic. We met on Facebook.
Yep.
Yeah, you had asked to feature me as an artist in the area, and I was like, wow, this guy is cool. This is so nice. And then learning more about what you do. So tell us a little bit about the Theater Fund, and then I want to hear something about you, because I know you've been an actor here for over 20 years?
A long time, yeah.
Yeah. So how did the Theater Fund, Community Fund, come about?
So I've wanted to start something like this for many years. A good friend of mine named John Moore started what's called the Denver Actors Fund in Colorado. And, they've grown so much over the last several years. And they have a great donor support, and they're paying for people's chemo, medical procedures. I think it's a lot of medical bills that they're helping to cover. It's a big focus.
That's needed.
It is, and that was just. I've seen so many members of the theater community over the years reach out for help or not reach out for help and struggle on their own. And I just thought, well, Kansas City needs something like this. And then the pandemic hit, and the need for something like this became urgent. And so I gathered some like-minded artists. We formed a board. And
I think we have a picture of them, you and some of your
I
board
think
members.
we do. I think it's from our first birthday party, 1 year anniversary. We had it at the Buffalo Room. And it's been interesting because, you know, we've never had an in-person board meeting yet. It's all been
Oh, really?
on Zoom.
It's still been.
Yeah, we were all on Zoom still. But yeah, so we started out with just a food bank. And then we started raising money. And then we actually, the first kind of grants that we helped with was a partnership with Theater League. They did these, they made a lot of money available for local artists right at the top of the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And so we helped them gather as many artists that meet the Theater League's requirements for those grants. And I think we ended up helping Theater League disperse like 90 grand.
Wow, at the beginning.
yeah,
So
at the
that helped
very
people with what?
beginning.
Rent, utilities,
Yes.
food, all kinds of things.
And then shortly after that, you know, Mark Edelman is such a theater booster and a great supporter of artists and theaters in town, and so he's amazing. And then when that was over, we started our own emergency grants that top out around $225.
Wow.
Which, you know, is not as much as
No,
other grants, but
listen, when you're in need, anything is helpful and appreciative.
right,
Yeah.
yes. And that's what we've experienced. You know, something happens, your car breaks down, the dominoes can fall really quickly, and we have helped out, I think, about 30 local artists.
Oh, wow.
Dispersing over $7,000 in the last year through the emergency grant program.
So you're not quite 2 years yet.
No, we will be 2 in this coming October.
And you've done so much.
I know.
So is your criteria very strict? Like, I'm asking, like, there are people who are, you know, they're in the theater community, they're artists, but they're not union or something.
Right. No, as long as you can confirm that you're a member of the theater community.
Okay.
You know, we ask for a resume, but we don't differentiate between union or non-union or even professional or community theater.
Okay,
You know, the people who act and stage manage and direct community theater shows, they're often subscribers at other theaters, and so they're just as woven into the community as anyone else.
And what about, you mentioned stage managers, so like people who work on crew and things like that?
Playwrights.
Everyone.
We've given grants to arts administrators.
Oh,
People
wow.
who work in the office,
Yeah.
box office,
This is fantastic.
ushers. You know, we really want to strip down these barriers that have developed over time. You know, actors separate from crew, which is separate from box office.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
we're-
everyone brings the story to life
Yes.
and the experience
Yes.
for people. So
designers,
everyone's part of it.
playwrights,
Right.
you know, all of these people matter and commit a huge part of their brain energy and their time to art.
Right.
And they deserve to have a resource for them.
So what made you this way? And I know it's a weird question, but I'm saying because, so there are people who they grow up, you know, volunteering. You know, their parents take them, make sure they volunteer, make sure they give back. And so it's kind of ingrained in them, you know. And then there's other people that maybe it just one day, maybe something happened to them. And then they decided, you know what, I'm going to like give back myself. So what made this a passion of yours, something that drew you to giving in this manner? Because I also mentioned the feature artists. You are strategically highlighting artists of color, you know, to highlight. What drew you to do that? Why?
Well, for the artist feature, you know, I think a lot of my skin folk, white people, white men, white straight, cisgendered men, at least the cool ones, have a moment of awakening where they kind of see beyond their own life and their own obstacles and see, oh, wow, well, this person has these barriers and this person, has these, walls they hit, for things they can't control, for the color of their skin, for how they talk, for how they dress. And, my awakening kind of started in around 2014 with the Michael Brown and the Ferguson stuff. And you just realize, holy moly, I am so lucky that the only barriers to my career have been, my personality or my laziness, or it's not because of other people's opinion about me, right? Self-imposed barriers. In my acting career, I've played kings, lawyers, servants, and I've had opportunities that other people who don't look like me have not had, even though they may often be even more capable of playing those diverse roles. And, I hear a lot of theater producers when they're asked about, why aren't your shows more diverse? A lot of times, all over the country, they'll say, well, whoever they is, whether it's Asian actors, Black actors, they just don't show up to auditions. And that didn't feel right to me, because I've lived in Kansas City most of my adult life, and people watching, Kansas City is not a homogenous zone. It's an incredibly diverse city, and there's lots of schools, Paseo, where there's an arts emphasis.
Yeah, my daughter goes there.
Yeah, I would have gone there if I'd stayed in that district. So I guess I'm just trying to interrupt. I'm just trying to disturb the
and it's a good thing.
The status quo. Where I just saw a show at the Bird Comedy Theater with Hillary Holt, Catherine Gray. And these are incredibly talented young artists. And I think they deserve to have their shot to make the kind of money you make in A Christmas Carol or at the New Theater. And I guess I'm just trying to eliminate people's excuses.
Right.
So
no, I see what you're saying, because I have heard from young artists who don't have that easy access like that I've emailed or something to certain theaters here and asking when auditions are or anything, and they don't hear back or anything. So it is a curious thing of, well, they don't show up, but they don't show up if they don't get notified of it. But you are definitely helping to change that, especially starting with this Crescendo Award that I am a recipient of. I'm so grateful. It's just such an honor to have this kind of support to produce a play that you wrote, and not have the barrier of funding or a space in order to do it. So who thought of that, and where do you see it going?
Well, I have to give credit to our board. Of course, we all kind of had the same idea at the same time. We want to feed artists, feed their bellies, like you said, clothe them, give them emergency help as well. But at the same time, we want to feed the artist's spirit, and we want to move the needle on some of these diversity struggles that our town and most towns have. Kansas City's not that unique in that way.
Right.
So Alexandria Washington, Darren Kennedy, who's also a great playwright, Sierra Berry, Christopher Barksdale Burns, Amanda Aroney. Did I say that already?
Yeah. No, you didn't say Amanda.
Okay. Corey Childs, who is one of the people who run the Arts Asylum.
Okay. Right.
We all kind of agreed, now this should be a priority, something to encourage the works of Black, Indigenous, and other artists of color. And so I think I can't remember, we had a different name for it for a while, but we had an amazing donor who donated the amount of money that we wanted to disperse. And we, the board, and me personally, I think if anyone in this town or anyone anywhere on the planet, if you have it in your head that you want to be any kind of artist, you should feel like you're welcome to do that. You should feel welcomed and encouraged, and even if you end up stinking,
Right,
you know,
right.
that artist urge is such a vulnerable but powerful urge, and I just don't think it should ever be squashed, stifled, or blocked in any way. The path should be clear, and that's kind of what our goal is to kind of clear the path, and have somewhere where artists of color can come to help their projects grow.
Yeah, and so the process of this award and how the shows are placed in different locations, did you find any challenges to that, finding venues, people agreeing or understanding your concept?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, because the pandemic has made it harder for everyone to do anything they want to do. Just theaters are struggling to get audiences back. You know, go and tell Taco Bell, you can't sell tacos for 2 years. And then see what happens to Taco Bell. You know, so that's what's happened at these theaters. They haven't been able to sell season tickets. They haven't been able to, they haven't been able to create a product for at least a season and a half. And so now everyone's back, and it's just it's very busy. So it's hard to convince someone to kind of open up their concept of what their season could look like.
I see.
And say, hey, put this in there. So that's a challenge. And it's, I try not to guess at people's reasoning.
Right,
I don't want
right,
to assume something
right.
negative or something positive. It simply is that way.
Yeah. Have you found that some of them say, well, maybe not this first time?
Yes.
But come back to us next year or maybe the year after, and, when we kind of get our footing again. I guess what I'm asking, did you find that there's openness in, in the spirit of the idea to change things in Kansas City in that way, to blend more?
Absolutely, yes. Everyone we talk to is excited about it.
Oh, good.
It's just certain times, it's not going to work out this
Right.
year, or we don't have room for that,
Right.
or a lot of times, like we reached out to Kansas City Actors Theater, and they were really excited about it, but they don't own the space that they.
That's an important piece too.
Yeah, so what they could do was limited.
Right. And so, who are the partners for this first year for Crescendo Award?
The official partners are. We'll start from the first production. So the first production is La Entrevista by Freddie Acevedo. It's with KC Public, performed at the Black Box in the West Bottoms.
Okay, and I was just over at the Black Box. That's a good space.
It's a great space.
Yeah, that's a
and there's
very
great
nice
people
space.
running it,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of great artists working there.
Yeah.
And same with KC Public. I've admired them. You know, they don't charge money to see their
I know,
plays.
isn't that beautiful?
That is radical, and that is their like radical hospitality.
Yeah,
is
that
like
really is.
their motto.
And that means a lot because theater tickets can be pricey.
It's preventative.
And so the other space.
So then the next would be you, I think. Right?
Okay.
You 789. July 7th,
Yes,
8th. So the next one is Love Electoral by
Kimi-SUNG.
hers truly. And that will be at the Arts Asylum.
And their new space.
New space at
Yes.
824 East Meyer Boulevard.
Right, great.
And then there's Victoria Barbie. We just found a space for her.
Yay, that
at
is so good.
Olathe Community Civic Theater Association.
I did a play reading there once, yeah.
Great people.
Great
Ted Collins made
people,
it so
yeah.
easy. They're donating the space. And they said, because, I don't think Ted would mind me saying, but they said, we know that we have a tricky history with diversity, and we see this as an opportunity
to kind of
to help
fix that.
Yeah. And
Good
that's
space too.
That's the point.
Yeah, and that'll be
that's cool.
interesting. Because it's a one-woman show, right?
Yeah,
there?
one woman show.
That's gonna be nice.
She's got a 3-piece band.
That's gonna be
But it's
really
telling her
great.
story into the community over